It is the 25th of the 1st, 2025. The time is 20 minutes past 8, and we need to pull at very many F1 centric news and updates threads this afternoon. What's going on, Marie? F1 Boy, Una, Macon, Crackosaurus, Kayla. You guys, each and every single one of you are legends. First topic on the docket. We need to talk about Lando Norris as my cough flares up in a timely fashion as per usual. McLaren are talking all the right things now, but it feels like less talk, more action. Lando Norris, lest we forget, has come out and said that he thinks that he has the requisite minerals to fight with everybody, notwithstanding the multitudinous mistakes that he made in 2024, crisis of confidence, mental fortitude or lack thereof. Those have been the criticisms most levelled at him most frequently because, of course, his mistakes at the Singapore Grand Prix, his mistakes by dint of his starting on pole, not consolidating, failure to adopt the defensive posture that so epitomised Michael Schumacher back in the day, that he made an industry out of even. So too, McLaren, again, don't know their arm from their ASS, right? Left hand failing to talk to the right, prioritising Oscar Jack sometimes over Lando Norris with a view to make sure that fairness is the in thing over winning a driver's championship. Today they've come out and they've said this, Lando Norris, I quote, "I think one thing we've realised as a team is now we're there at the front, we want to make it easy for ourselves." No kidding, Sherlock. Line of least resistance settings if indeed you harbour aspirations to win races and therefore championships. I thought someone would have told you this already. He continues, "We want to keep going so that we can win easily these races and not have them as difficult as they were last year." Flipping Nora. What are we doing, chat? I don't understand why this is complicated. This is very simple, no? Surely line of least resistance. F1 is complicated. Make your life as easy as possible. Therefore, what you can't afford to lose is points at the altar of fairness if indeed Oscar Piastri is a factor in this McLaren papaya-ruled equation. Lando continues, "They've done the opposite. They've gone, we want them even more, and we worked even harder to try and find new things for the year." So he's talking about the team here, that McLaren are going full send, trying to win themselves a drivers' championship. I think they've turned these expectations into positive things, into more motivation, more drive to want to win again. For myself, Lando Norris continues, "As much as I want to win the constructors every year, I also want the selfish one, to win the drivers. You need a good team behind you if indeed you harbour aspirations of winning the world drivers." And I think that's exactly what I've got. I came close-ish last year. I was still always a bit far behind, but I could smell it. I had that feeling of, okay, this is kind of what it's like. He continues, does Lando Norris. The title in 2024 was within reach. This year in 2025, I need to fix a few things, work on some things and come back stronger. And that's what I'm ready to. Well, good luck, Lando Norris. You'll have the car capable of winning races and therefore championships. But I'm not sure that Lando Norris has anything else necessary. Of course he has the speed and the race gap, but I'm not talking about those hard things, those tangible bits. I'm talking about the intangibles, the soft skills, you know, the things that made Tom Brady quarterback, the greatest quarterback that we've ever seen. That mental fortitude, the resilience, the acute, that attention to detail, the ability to read a race and or game in real time and make the necessary adjustments requisite to win. I'm not sure Lando's got that in his locker, but we're going to continue talking about this as we go into next season. Team principal of the papaya coloured team, Andrea Stella, said as follows, and I quote, "With the drivers, we have to say that recently we have had Lewis Hamilton and Maximilian Verstappen. The bar is incredibly high, therefore," Andrea Stella told Racing News 365. "This requires the team to support the driver because Lando was unable, being able to stay in the quest until the last race because we as a team did not provide him with a fast enough car at the start of the season." Well, arguable, some might say. Afterwards, when we developed a car at Miami with that upgrade, pretty much Lando Norris was on par with Maximilian Verstappen in terms of poise, but Andrea Stella, I will see you that and raise you this. He had a faster car, for Pete's sake. Normalise for that. We're not comparing apples with apples. Andrea Stella continues. The team culture is a fundamental element to be able to maximise what you have available, but also excuse me, to let the talent flourish and to allow the missed opportunities in particular to be reviewed and to learn and grow from them. It's really difficult to capitalise without having a strong performance and also human culture. Says all the right things, does Andrea Stella, but again, this is the time for less talk, more action. I was incredibly impressed by Andrea Stella in his Beyond the Grid appearance, the most recent one, where he talked about not looking and scraping for an individual component or upgrade that was going to give him and the team lap time sufficient requisite to win races and therefore championship, not a flexi wing or a mini DRS in isolation. What he wants to do, what he holds himself responsible for, is instituting for the necessary parameters and circumstances to embolden the team to make decisions that are ultimately going to gain themselves lap time. This is all about processes, not outcomes. And I have to rate that. Excuse me, bloody Nora. Is the flu going round the world, chat? What is going on? Everybody in the UK has come down with this thing and I can't seem to shake it, but I digress. Let's talk about Haas. You guys let me know in the chat whether you think Lando Norris is justified, installed by the bookmakers as the current favourite to win the World Drivers' Championship. If you run 100 simulations, they say Lando Norris in that Papaya Good car, that he wins this Drivers' Championship in 2025, 33.333% of the time recurring. I'm not sure. I think those numbers are wrong. I'll be honest. Equal to or less than 33% is my call. Oh, and by the way, I need to talk about Haas. Komatsu has made a very pragmatic conversation and said that he's not going to follow Scuderia Ferrari, pronounce it correctly, Cameron, intonation settings, up their current design philosophy tree. They're amending for the suspension in real time. But Komatsu said that Haas as a team don't have the requisite financial resources to follow Scuderia Ferrari up that design philosophy tree. Cost gap isn't their bottleneck. Gene Haas is their bottleneck. Imagine for a second to sing Komatsu's praises, to bark up his thesis tree. Imagine for a second that they change their suspension rod at the front to adapt to whatever Ferrari are doing in 2025, but then it goes wrong. How much Ferrari have the resources to fix for that, just like Red Bull had to last year, of course, but how much resources do Haas have to throw at that? They're always going to be a step behind, a day late and a dollar short in terms of the design philosophy. Here's what Autosport said of that circumstance, that very automotive pugilistic equation for which Team Haas and Komatsu need to solve. It would put them in line with Red Bull and McLaren in an area that can widen the ways in which teams nail the ride height so critical for the performance in this era, something that hurt Ferrari last year when it introduced a new floor in Spain. But therein lies the danger of Haas adopting, mimicking whatever their provider of their engines are going to do in 2.5. Therein lies the danger too, as Komatsu outlines. Ferrari have to spend time it does not have working out the full impact of the changes when its 2025 Challenger hits the track. It does, however, possess the massive resources, Ferrari and staff, to be further down such a route based on simulation tools alone compared to the more limited situation at Haas. But 2024 showed how such a big team can still get things wrong. Upgrades can look like downgrades sometimes, particularly if you don't throw out the requisite due diligence as far as aerodynamic and mechanical changes. Komatsu said no. We're not going to just mimic what Ferrari are doing, amending for their suspension in real time. Now you know that they have been push, I want to say, and now they're going pull. They're amending to the meta that Adrian Newey's laid out for so many bloody years in this set of ground effect era car. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, because everybody's coming out and smashing this dude now. It feels a bit satirical, isn't the word necessarily. Bullying Is that the right word? You guys have seen on social media. First, there was the post of Isaac Hadjar, and then there was the post from Oscar Piastri in the Don Corleone suit, right? Mimicking Lewis Hamilton, talking about this is the greatest day of my life. Then you've got Jeremy Clarkson putting out a similar message with him in the pinstripe suit, taking the mick. Again, on one hand, it speaks to how mainstream Sir Lewis Hamilton has become as an F1 driver. The fact that all these guys and girls are memeing him to death. On the other hand, it feels like they're not taking this thing seriously. Jeremy Clarkson, lest we forget, was the guy who at Brazil characterised Sir Lewis Hamilton's drive by saying this. I think Sir Lewis Hamilton is past it. There's two things we learned, says Jeremy Clarkson, from the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2024. Maximilian Verstappen isn't just great, he might be the greatest driver that we've ever seen. Tick, concur, potentially. We can have that argument another time. Second thing, that Lewis Hamilton is way past it, that he's well over his prime, that his best days are behind him, said Jeremy Clarkson. And now we get this meme culture where everybody's talking about the pinstripe. And so too, you'll recall Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard on the Formula for Success podcast both said that Ferrari were making a grave mistake by sacking off Carlos Sainz, who had been nothing but good to them as far as being an F1 peddler, and hiring in his stead Sir Lewis Hamilton at the ripe old age of 40, arguing too that Sir Lewis Hamilton isn't Sir Lewis Hamilton now that he was in 2018, let's say 2014 at his prime. Same thesis. Is Sir Lewis past his prime? Non-rhetorical question. Now you have the legend that is Jackie Ickx coming out and saying as follows. Sainz did really well at Ferrari. He said Ferrari were tempted to sign Hamilton. Probably just for marketing reasons, he says. Probably because Lewis wanted a new experience and to include Scuderia Ferrari in his history. There's nothing to reproach Carlos for at Ferrari. Carlos had been successful. He'd won Grand Prix, but that's in the past now. He has to think about what's next. As far as F1, Jackie Ickx continues, there are many important aspects to it. It's not just politics. There are economics and marketing, but ultimately it's all about winning. Jackie Ickx is right. Here's where this plays to my advantage as a day walker, as an F1 fan. Part-time casual, part-time diehard. I understand with my accounting brain turned on that there is a duty to be paid, no owed to shareholders. Therefore, a signing such as Lewis Hamilton, you cannot, if you are a C-suite exec at Scuderia Ferrari, there is no way that you can argue against that in real time. Lewis is going to do one of these to the share price, has done one of these to the share price. You see the unprecedented numbers. If we're going to have an argument about whether Sir Lewis in long form can deliver more than what Carlos Sainz could deliver, then that's a different conversation, potentially for another day. It continues. The Leclerc-Sainz partnership worked and worked well. It worked because they both won races and they were always very close to each other, says Jackie Ickx. I don't know what happened. The one thing I can say, says Jackie Ickx, is that it's sad that Sainz is leaving Ferrari, but you have to move on and you can't constantly think about what could and should have been and why it didn't happen. No, you have to be focused on what you have and do the best with what you have at your disposal. Oh, the humanity. Everybody rounding on Sir Lewis Hamilton, and more pertinently Ferrari, for making the decision to sign a 40-year-old 7-time champion under the umbrella heading of marketing, a marketing behemoth. The symbiosis of brand Hamilton and Ferrari isn't worth arguing against. But again, it depends on the lens through which you're analysing this decision. If you're talking about performance, then again, you can argue back and forth between now and the time when the cows come home about Carlos Sainz as versus Sir Lewis Hamilton. Principally, Sir Lewis is 40. Has he got another 2 or 3 years in him? Potentially, maybe 4 max at a push. How many years has Carlos Sainz got in him? More? Can Carlos Sainz operate at the same level as Sir Lewis Hamilton at the age of 40-year-old? Probably not, but there are more years left in Carlos Sainz's toolbox. Sainz Senior, by the way, he's chimed in too. He said about Scuderia Ferrari that they didn't behave badly as far as my son's concerned, but it was circumstances. It was the perfect storm. Ferrari were happy with Carlos, my son, but the possibility appeared because Hamilton himself produced it. It is he, Hamilton, who approached Scuderia Ferrari. Then the circumstances arose. Perhaps the process could have been clearer, more transparent, but then it would have been leaked and Ferrari did not want it to be like that. Oh, the humanity. Unpick this. Listen, Peter D wins, a friend of the channel, infinitely more wise and of more wisdom in all things F1. Always has said, right, you've heard him on a gazillion occasions, it feels wrong that Carlos Sainz is getting kicked out, having done nothing wrong. But by the way, let me tell you guys this. We looked at the numbers yesterday, didn't we, as far as the behemoth of a sporting enterprise and marketing anomaly that is Sir Lewis Hamilton. Joe Saywood writes in his latest newsletter that Ferrari, as far as their sponsors, this is why it matters. Ferrari, as far as their sponsors, they've given more details about the deal with new premium partner UniCredit. You would have seen the Sir Lewis Hamilton helmet in homage, some say, to one Ayrton Senna, yellow all over. Emblazoned upon it was UniCredit. Now Santander, having followed their charge, the Spanish star Carlos Sainz Jr., man from Madrid, over to Williams now. Excuse me. UniCredit though, Ferrari, now they are a premium partner, says Joe Saywood, per his newsletter. The Italian banking firm. This replaces the 3-year deal that the Spanish bank Santander had with Ferrari previously. The new contract is a multi-year agreement, and this puts UniCredit alongside Shell, IBM, Puma, and the online gambling firm VGW Play in Ferrari's second tier of sponsor, below the new title sponsor HP Inc. Currently, Italy's second biggest bank by asset value, UniCredit is in the process of buying Banco BPM in a $10.4 billion deal. Oh, the humanity. Are we talking the business of F1 here? It is chaos. Oh, and by the way, since we're talking about the business S1, should we talk about Cadillac? Because Toto, the boy who cried wolf, has come out and aimed his scopes at Cadillac F1. Listen, there's been a growing sentiment. You'll understand. Recall even that Cadillac for the longest time weren't even going to come on the grid. People didn't want it. Nobody wanted to sign it off, particularly when Michael Andretti's name was on the bid. You'll recall Michael Andretti did the strong arm thing. Instead of going out there, fostering rapport and currying favour with the people that matter, the team principals up and down the grid and drivers, he decided it was a good idea to get a pen and a piece of paper and strong arm million and billion dollar asset value team principals into signing a letter of support for the then Andretti bid. That was always going to fail. Sometimes you've got to go out there and kiss some babies and shake some hands. Foster some rapport, know your client base. Michael Andretti failed to do that, and now we're talking about Cadillac. Substantively, it's as near as makes no difference the same. But GM are involved, and the name above the door is no longer Andretti by dint of all of Michael's travails, peeing off people in real time. Now it's Cadillac F1 in conjunction with GM. GM set to be the engine manufacturer if word on the F1 curb is something that you want to be invested. I'm telling you. So go on then, let me read this out to you. Joe Saywood again has all of the hot takes as far as this. Here's what Toto said about for table setting. Let's talk about the situation first and foremost before we talk about Toto, because it's important. You remember for a long while Nobody was keen, right, apart from Mohammed Ben Sulayem and the FIA, that were rubber stamping entries left, right and centre. Nobody wanted an 11th or 12th entry in Formula One. Why? Because ultimately cash rules everything around me. Cream get the money, dollar bills. Your green is the only colour that matters in F1. Why, if you were one of the 10 teams, would you want another team to come in? Not now, not after Drive to Survive and 2021 blockbuster season, having put on 17 races through COVID. Why now? If indeed I'm one of the 10 teams, 10 team principals, and I've built the house that is F1. I've been there in the trenches. I wouldn't want another owner, another team coming in now after we've done all the heavy lifting. Okay, so it's selfish, I understand it, but there is business in Formula One that needs tending to. Lest we forget again, all of a sudden there was a very quick turnaround as far as Cadillac F1. It was no across the board, and then very suddenly it was yes. Some say that had something to do with DOJ, the timing of Trump coming in as president-elect, potentially, some say. So too, some say it had something to do with the fact that Mohammed Ben Sulayem has connections to Cadillac by dint of his brother and some of the supply contracts. But again, another conversation for another day. But the question yet and still needs answering. Why all of a sudden a Cadillac now set to be the new entrant in F1 in 2026? What happened? Joe Saywood goes some way to answering this, but he's talking here about Toto Wolff's reaction. Now, Toto, in saying what he said, he's only saying what everybody else was thinking up and down the grid. Here's what Joe Saywood says. Mercedes team principal has finally gone on the record and said what most of the other F1 teams have been avoiding saying out loud, and that the new GPM Cadillac Formula LLC racing team, which will debut in 2026 in Formula 1, has arrived in short with far too favourable financial terms compared to the existing teams. Recall, any sports franchise all around the world, if you're going to enter it, you will need to pay a dilution fee. Joe Saywood continues. The new team, Cadillac F1, which has been dressing up itself in full General Motors factory team, will only have to pay $450 million as an anti-dilution fee, but will get prize money immediately. So you remember a couple of weeks ago, there were all these terms and there was all this speculation about a couple of teams being added in to Formula 1, Lucky Sons potentially, as well as High Tech. Again, lest we forget, High Tech court battle ongoing with High Tech. I know court battle not ongoing with High Tech. High Tech already got ruled in their favour that the FIA had been incorrect and or unfair in ruling against the entry of High Tech based upon financial grounds. Here's what we know though about General Motors and this 450 million. 450 million feels cheap. Here's why. It sounds like a lot of money in absolute terms, but F1's doing one of these, right? Each and every single year. There was Drive to Survive, there was COVID, there was the blockbuster season that was 2021, and F1's done one of these. Each of these teams on the current grid are worth at the very least $1 billion. So compute that then. 450 million and immediately have access to prize money. That's why some are saying up and down the grid inside the paddock that that's cheap. Toto Wolff believes that the new team should be paying a much bigger anti-dilution fee, as discussions over the new Concord agreement had been aiming at a figure closer to $800 million, with some wanting $1 billion to avoid big sport investors charging in looking to take a quick buck, right? It's techie this. Their efforts to build up the sport should be respected, some say. Investments should be protected. The 450 million, says Joe Saywood, will be divided between the existing teams to offset the reduction in prize money that the new team will cause. But many believe that it will mean that they will lose money net, and they are not happy, arguing against having an American badge team supposedly one from GM makes it difficult to argue this without generating negative publicity. It's tacky. These guys, it is all about the green, right? Outlaw, I'm telling you, it is properly chaos. Kayla, Coyote, but you guys are legends. Go on and let me get through this before I start coughing. Here's the final stanza. Joe Saywood, go and subscribe to that guy's newsletter if indeed you're invested in all things F1-centric news thread story arcs. Last year, says Joe Saywood, the team shared prize money of $1.215 billion. The shares are uneven at around 25% of this money goes into historic bonus payments to long-established teams a la Scuderia Ferrari. The rest is divided into two so-called columns. One which gives each team an equal share, the other which is divided based upon a scale of percentage reflecting who finishes where in the Constructors' Championship. Thus, in 2025, the teams will be getting different. It's getting techie, I'm telling you. It is getting techie, isn't it, Corey? Go on and let me read out this finally. Here's what Toto said. His words, not mine. Quote, "We don't know what Cadillac will invest into Formula 1, Wolff said." He told this to Automotor und Sport. The compensation fee, which is currently set at $450 million, is far too low. Toto Wolff continues, it does not make up for the direct loss in income Only time will tell what value the sport gains from having an 11th participant. If the sport's value increases, then everyone benefits, but we just don't know yet. If Cadillac enters now with a works team and invests in appropriate marketing budget into F1, it will be a valuable addition to the sport. So herein lies the issue, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury. Becoming a new entrant in Formula 1 has always been difficult. If past is Brolag, go and check Toyota. Red Bull are the outliers in this, one of the only teams to come into F1 in recent times and make a lasting success of it. Have a good run, win some silverware, but they are outliers in this, a black swan of an F1 team. Cadillac, with that engine of GM, are they going to come in and nail it? To save a dime puppy? Are you betting yes or no? If past is prologue, you have to bet no, right? I'm not saying that they won't fall at the altar of lack of financial resource, but it's knowledge and it's expertise and it's intellectual property. There aren't too many minds in the world that can make a successful team, that can build a successful F1 team from ground zero upwards. And herein lies the problem for Cadillac. Is this engine manufacturer deal with GM even a thing? A GM got the length and tenure, breadth of knowledge requisite to build a successful engine in Formula 1 in 2025? How are they going to cope with building this brand new regulation engine, hybrid, 50% electric, 50% internal combustion? How are they going to manage that? They've only just got the rubber stamp for it, right? So their lead time as far as due diligence and R&D will be what? 12, 24 months maximum? That, ladies and gentlemen, is not long enough. Even if indeed they do expedite for their learning curve, it's going to get techie for GM. I desperately want for there to be another team in Formula 1, an 11th or a 12th or a 13th. But what's more important than that? This is what the team principals and related parties are alluding to, that the team isn't just a brand new team, but it's a brand new team and it's successful. There was a period back there some years ago when a new team would enter and just fall away. It was Jaguar getting bought out. It was Toyota. It was Marussia. All these guys, HRT, it was all these guys coming in and dropping out very quickly because F1 is a hard thing to do and a very hard thing to do very well. Here's hoping GM won't stink up the joint, Kaori. I'm hoping desperately. But again, if past is prologue, who's to bet against? Ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, no further questions, Your Honour.